What up, my friends? Just finished a hike. Did nice 3 rounds. Got out here a little bit later. Shit, I slept in, man. I didn't wake up till 6 a.m. Like half the day was gone. But it's like, it must be in the 70s right now. It's beautiful out. A lot of people out and about, which is great. Just another day to be grateful and grateful to be alive. I was thinking about, because I said a little prayer out here, and I was like, what am I grateful for, And I'm grateful for all my trials and tribulations, my past troubles with addiction and, my criminality and violence and, time being locked up and, incarceration and just all kinds of stuff like that, because it makes me realize who I don't want to be every day. I hope people get these messages in their lives from themselves, earlier on than I did. I'm 54 years old. I knew that there was a better way, that there was a better path in my life ahead of me, or it could have been, right? A better reality. And when I think back to all the times where I felt like I was suffering and having such a hard time, it was my own mental health. It was my own mental reality that was keeping me in that hard life, hard times situation, And when I look back, like, sure, I put myself through the ringer, but like I did that to myself, And when I look back, I see that I had a good life the whole time. Sure, were there things like in my childhood that I couldn't control, due to my parents' choices and things like that? Sure, but I made choices of my own that kept me in that kind of negative headspace, negative life style and lack of goals, lack of morality. I'm grateful today, every day, that I was able to scrape myself up out of that pit that I had dug for myself. I kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and now I'm out of it. I live a life second to none, probably very boring to most people, but I've done all the exciting stuff. I've done all the crazy stuff. I did all the drugs, the alcohol, the womanizing, the selling drugs, the criminality, living life on the edge, and, the violence, and, all the shit that I felt was perpetrated on me in my young life, my young existence, in my childhood, in my teens. Like, I perpetrated the same BS on other people, I perpetrated the same BS on myself, on my children, like they didn't have it as bad as I did, but that's all relative to your situation, right? Even their lives are different now, and I only had to change one thing, and like I said before, it was everything about myself. I had to inflict some discipline on myself. And in the beginning, I say inflict because it was very painful. It was very hard. It was difficult. Not every day. I'm not motivated every day, but I'm disciplined every day. Sometimes more than others, but I still have the discipline of like, well, what's been working for you. Going out, walking in the woods, hour and a half, 2 hours a day, that works for you. It helps me in all of my other affairs. I think about the stuff that I did in the past, but I don't dwell on it. I don't live in it. I'm not a big therapy person. I did all that stuff. I ran through the gambit of that, of the mental health drugs, the psych evaluations, this, that, and the other thing. And and even like meetings, AA, NA, and I'm not saying, if you need to do that stuff to get your life right, hey, good on you, But for me, it was just like reliving, rehashing the same old BS over and over again. And I can't live in that, Sure, do I remember it? Have I learned from it? Have I grown from it? Yes, for sure. But like, I don't dwell on it. I don't live in it. I barely think about it anymore. You know, from time to time out here, you know, I think about my past. I think about, you know, goals for the future, you know, things I worry about with my children and society. But I don't dwell on it. I get it out, you know, I get it out here in like a walking meditation. I say a little prayer, do a walking meditation. I have time to just contemplate what's going on in here. And it helps me out here, you know. All right, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I really do. I really do. You know, if you're out of shape, remember, it's your fault. If you're depressed, remember, it's your fault. You know, if you let people walk all over you, it's your fault. You know, if you're not accomplishing the things that you need and want to accomplish in your life, it's your fault. It was all my fault. You know, and once I realized that, it was so easy to step out of it. I'm like, oh, I'm throwing roadblocks in my way. You know, I'm putting this shit in my life that I don't need and don't want. You know, it's not easy in the beginning, but it gets easier over time. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.